Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking aims and kicking candy ass. Limely Color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. And tonight I am joined by one of my all-time favorite guests, my brother from another mother. He is the one, the only, the Prime Minister of Sinister. He's Mr. Don Nice. What's going on, good brother?
What's up, man? What's up? How you been?
I've been all right, man. I'm so happy to have you on the show. It's been too long of a time. I believe the last time I had you on was Black Christmas when we did the retrospective of those movies. And, you know, I know you're a big Candyman fan, and this coming Sunday is actually the 30th anniversary of the original film. And I was like, you know what? We got to get Don Nice on Celebrate some Candyman tonight. Now, the sequels, I don't know how much of celebrating there's going to be unless we go to Mardi Gras or direct-to-DVD land or requel land. I don't know. I don't kind of want to go to any of those, at least in my opinion. But, man, how you been? What you been watching this spooky season?
Man, dude, I've been buying up 4Ks like crazy from Shout Factory, Scream Factory. I've been watching the same – I find myself watching the same stuff over and over again, but that's because we love it. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure you're probably the same way. Throwing in Sleepaway Camp 3 a couple times a month. I know you guys.
The best.
Yep. That's right.
The best. What 4Ks did you get the Fright Night 4K? I just picked that up last week.
It's on its way. I haven't gotten it yet. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't. My plan is to watch it on Halloween night. That's my plan.
Okay. All right. I was just gonna ask how it was. I got like Funhouse. I picked up the new Scream movie, even though I'm not a huge fan. I know you're not a huge fan, but I had to complete. I bought Scream 1 and 2, waiting for Scream 3 and 4 to come out. I haven't picked up the new 3-movie Halloween set. The what is it? H2O Resurrection. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't pull the trigger. I know you're not a big fan of a couple of those movies, but
the covers are really I don't like. It's just basically copied and pasted the same fucking cover for all 8 of them. It's like, here's Michael standing in front of leaves. Here's Michael standing in front of a hospital with leaves. Right. It's like, son of a bitch, that guy got paid to do the same cover 8 times?
We could have done that. We could have done it.
We could have. Jesus Christ, man. We ain't no art majors, but I think we could have. I can't bite on that, man. I know they had the pricing error at Walmart, and then they canceled all those people.
Oh, I know, right? I almost jumped on that, but I knew they would. I knew they'd cancel that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that happens from time to time. We got a couple people in the house. Slasher Fred is here. Be my victim. Yes, words from the legendary Candyman. Dead Central, what's up? Hey, what's going on, Kevin? Hope all is well with you, buddy. Falcon Adam, Candyman, one of the 90s horror icons. Same way Jason or Freddy were for the 1980s. Gotta love it. Adam, welcome to the graveyard tonight, my friend. But yeah, no, I've been watching a bunch of good stuff too. I've actually rewatched, for some reason, I wanted to watch Willard, the original, the sequel, Ben from the 70s, and then the Willard remake. That has been the last week I watched. And then I watched the Addams Family movies. I've watched some, I've just kind of jumped around this spooky season. Right. I love watching the same stuff too, though. I'm kind of the same way.
The ultimate question, when's Hocus Pocus going to be thrown in?
The original Hocus Pocus will be thrown in. I ain't watching that sequel nonsense.
You're not going to?
Hell no. That's a bunch of bullshit. Bette Midler's going to shake her 70-year-old yits on the stage. Get the hell out of here. I'm not watching. They go into a Walgreens, apparently. Teo is in the house. Ciao Grande. Ciao Grande. Ciao Grande. Ciao Grande. I'm not going to say it the 5th time because then Grande is going to come and kill my dumb ass with a hook. Ciao Grande, friends. Miss C's in the house. AJ's in the house. My favorite dudes. AJ, welcome, man. Let's see. I love the song Ben by Michael Jackson. Of course. I mean, I love that song as well. It's amazing. And Crispin Glover actually covered it for the Willard remake. Are you familiar with that? Have you seen the Willard?
I'm not. I have not seen that movie. I mean, I know of it, but Crispin Glover's a weird dude, man. I don't know. He's crazy. I mean, he's pretty good, but don't get me wrong. But I don't know. I just never seen it. Is it good? Is it worth watching?
It's worth watching. He really is a weird dude. Like, he is born to play that role. Like, he looks like he's friends with a fucking pet rat to me. Like, it's it's the perfect casting. It really is. I mean, he's fantastic. Highly recommend. Goddamn Bears look like a bunch of Tootsie Pops tonight. Yeah, what the hell?
They playing my Redskins.
Are they really?
I mean, I'm sorry, my Commanders or whatever they're called.
Or the Yankees are playing the Guardians. Yeah.
Right.
We can't say the names anymore, although the Braves are still okay. We can still say Braves for some reason. I don't know.
What's
Aiden
up, Aiden?
Bavers in the house. Hey, what's up, everybody? What's going on, Aiden? Yeah, no. So tonight we're gonna dive into all things Candyman, and this is, I believe it or not, I don't know if you know this, and I don't even know if I told you this. You were the person that really made me realize how great this movie was back when the FHMP days, when we would talk horror movies every week together. You kind of made me open my eyes to two movies, and both of them had you on the show for the original Black Christmas, which every time I watch gets better.
Yeah,
And
man.
this movie right here, the original Candyman. And that's why I really wanted you in particular to come on and talk about this one from, of course, 1992. This is Bernard Rose's film. This is Candyman. Brief plot synopsis. The Candyman, a murderous soul with a hook for a hand, is accidentally summoned to reality by a skeptic grad student researching the monster's myth. Yes, Candyman from 1992. Now, Don, take me back in the good old time machine. 30 years ago, you were the ripe old age of 20. I was -6. And did you see this in the theater? Do you have any fond memories of when you first saw this movie? What were your initial thoughts and impressions?
Okay. Well, I was dirt poor, so I did not see it at the theater. I didn't get the chance to go to the theater a ton. I go to the drive-in when I was real young. But no, I didn't see it until it came out on VHS. And I was huge into Stephen King at around that age. And I was really starting to get into Clive Barker, right? You know what I mean? So, but I didn't know at the time when I saw the movie that it was Clive Barker, which is interesting because they throw that on everything now, right? You know what I mean? Clive Barker, so when I saw it, I was blown away. I am a huge fan of Virginia Madsen in this movie in particular. I mean, she does good in other things too, but in this movie in particular, Tony Todd, this was kind of the real introduction to Tony Todd for most people, especially most horror fans. Blown away. Like, I think Tony Todd could possibly have been nominated for an Oscar for this movie. I mean, he wasn't Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, but neither of them had a ton of screen time. But when they were on the screen, bam, they were just phenomenal. I thought the kills in this movie were great. But what's funny about this movie is it's hard to say scared, but I was more in fear of this movie and the character and the storyline the more I saw it, which is really, really interesting because it usually goes the other way around, right? You see it, you're scared to death, and then it kind of wanes after time. But I think this is a beautiful movie. I think the music in this is amazing. I just remember it was probably around 1995 before I saw it, and I watched it alone. Now, check this out. I watched it all by myself in the middle of the day. And I had my 2 dogs right here in a headlock. You know what I mean? So if that tells you, how I feel about the movie, and that's why I still love it to this day, is because it's very nostalgic. And I remember being sincerely scared of the movie. Not necessarily because I thought it was a super scary movie, but for what the movie stood for, what was actually happening in the story. And Tony Todd was pretty freaky. I mean, his voice and, So, that's what I remember of my first viewing of it. What about you?
And you really, you did a great job of taking us back in the time machine there. So I want to say thank you, first of all. And I got to say, like, to me, what really stands out in this movie that a lot of movies miss now is establishing a tone right off the bat. The opening credit sequence in and of itself is creepy. And the music, it's just so well done. I like how they do the credits kind of coming in from the sides.
Oh, yeah.
And as we see the aerial shots of Cabrini Green and Chicago, and I think right off the bat that music sets a tone. And then, of course, the thing that kind of sells Candyman to me is the backstory and the legend, the urban myth and folk tale, if you will, of this man who long, long ago was this artist. He fell in love with this, farmer's daughter, and they, had a romantic relationship. He is brutally murdered, hand cut off, hook for a hand, eaten alive or sung alive by the bees. And then, of course, if you say his name 5 times in the mirror, the Candyman comes to get you. That initial story where you actually see Ted Raimi in the story.
We were talking about that.
Yeah, we were like, shit, freaking Ted Raimi. Holy shit. Ted Raimi gets, he's about to hook up with his woman. She wants to say Candyman. He chickens out and she gets killed. And you see her blood kind of leak through the ceiling.
Yeah.
That's how you start a fucking horror movie, man. Like right off I'm invested. I'm scared. I don't know what's going on, but I'm in, you know? And I think that's one of the most important things that Candyman does right off the bat is it kind of throws its lore at you, and it's very interesting. I mean, I really love the backstory. I'm not sure, were you familiar at the time or now with the Clive Barker short story, The Forbidden, which is what this is based off of?
I've never read it, and the reason I've never read it is because I love the movie so much, right? You know, I read Weave World, and you know, I've read quite a few stories that he's written, but I never did, and I still haven't, because I don't want to lose my love for the film. Isn't that, I mean, it's kind of weird and cheesy, but it's true.
And you know, it's funny. My grandmother was just telling me, always read the book first.
Right,
She always tell me that. But it works both ways. If I see the movie first, I don't want to read the book because I don't want it to ruin the movie, you know? Exactly. So I've been in that boat too. Funny thing, though, about the short story that I wanted to mention, because a lot of people don't know this, is The Forbidden, the short story, did not contain the classic Candyman backstory that I just said. None of that's in the story, and it's not much to do with race as much as it is to do with just, you know, the grad student learning about the Candyman, and then, you know, it plays out from there. But the backstory is completely not in it. That was something that the director actually wrote, Bernard Rose. He wrote that backstory in. And I wanted to give him some creative kind of credibility here because Clive Barker gets all the credit, and rightfully so. We love Clive. I mean, Clive is brilliant, whether it be, you know, The Hellbound Heart or Midian or Weave World, like you mentioned. The guy is great. The Books of Blood is actually what this is from. I wanted to give Bernard Rose some props here because that's all him. And he never seems to get his credit for that. So I wanted to give him his credit here tonight. We got a couple comments here before we keep going. I'm guessing you're not talking about the Candyman song. Well, we could be. Where's Sammy Davis Jr. at? Who could take the sun? I don't know. We're not going to start singing. I can't stay too long, but the original film is one of my all-time faves. I'm a sucker for Clive Barker like John Carpenter. I mean, who isn't? Farewell to the Flesh was decent in my opinion. The third film sucked ass. Okay, all right. Speaking of Hocus Pocus, you should watch Ernest Scared Stupid and compare the two. I love Ernest Scared Stupid and Hocus Pocus. I'll never watch that sequel, though. Saw this at the show way before we were blessed with Grande. Well, that is really cool. I know you saw people on the stairs, too, at the show. Cool enough. One critic to the movie for me is too urban. But I understand, critique. I'm sorry, but I understand because that was a regular theme of 90s horror. Okay, I hear that. Candyman is like pre-The Ring, which also involves female protagonist who investigates a supposedly urban myth and discovers that is more than just a myth. That's actually a really good point. Yeah, The Ring kind of probably took a little bit of inspiration from the way this story is told. Let's see. If Clive Barker's name is on a movie as a director, writer, or producer, I'm watching even like Gods and Monsters, which Barker produced. Jericho might be my favorite story in a video game. Okay. Candyman is like a cross between the two classic urban myths, The Hook and Bloody Mary. Oh, definitely. It's definitely Bloody Mary. The opening scene with the bees swarming around the city. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Ray, she's here. Rainbow Fright. Be my victim. Yo, what's going on? Hope all is well. It's been a long time since I've seen your name on here. Hope all is well. Ted Raimi was in another Clive Barker adaptation, The Midnight Meat Train. Oh, yeah, that's right. He is in that. Miss Carter saying, hey, Rainbow, Be My Victim. 4 movies, 50 kills. Really? Wow. I didn't know there were that many. Most of them must be in the fucking reboot, right?
Off screen.
Off screen by invisible fucking Candyman. Trenchy's in the house. Hey, what's up? Trenchy's going to be on the show next week, as long as that still works for him. But yeah, no. You mentioned Virginia Madsen. You mentioned Tony Todd, and man, I want to talk a little bit about Tony Todd because Tony Todd. We were texting about this, man. Like I consider him the closest thing our generation ever got to a Vincent Price or a Christopher Lee. Like we always. I remember my grandfather talking about Karloff and Lugosi, and then my father talking about Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and Vincent Price. I don't know what we would talk about, but one of the first people that come to my mind is Tony Todd, and he's just one of the great all-time screen presences. You just feel it, man, when he shows up around the 40 to 45 minute mark. Be my victim, Helen. Right, it was always you. I mean. One of my favorite performances of all time. What do you think of Tony Todd as a performer?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I didn't do the research to find out if he did anything before this, but this was my introduction for sure.
Sure.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And especially when you talk to female horror fans about this film, they're all just hypnotized by the guy. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's, good looks or that damn voice or whatever. But for me, like I said, man, I really thought, the sequels aside, the original, I thought he could have been nominated. I really do. I mean, especially the more I see. You know what I'm saying? And maybe, we all know that horror is too much for the Academy and all that shit. But I just think, I think she did a fantastic job, but he made the movie.
Yeah.
Hannibal Lecter. You know what I mean?
It's perfect way. And it's funny. It's a year removed from Silence of the Lambs. It's a
Right.
very similar. Those two had a chemistry that couldn't be denied.
Right.
The way she looks at him, and I love the way that the director shoots her face. If you notice, there's always like a light across. I thought that was brilliant, man. I noticed too recently. I told you I'm watching the Addams Family 1990s movies. They do that with Morticia on purpose throughout the whole movie. And I see it in this. I'm like, man, that must have been the thing to do at this time.
Yeah. I thought when I saw that because it happens quite often in this film, it reminded me of an Italian movie, right?
Sure.
They're always obsessed with eyes. You know what I mean? So, kind of remember, thinking, the movie M from back in the 30s. You know what I mean? That was kind of a theme there too. And it worked, man. And, the director, I don't know much about like his history and his filmography and things like that. But man, he knocked it out of the park with this. No doubt.
He did. And I think, the sequences of horror in this movie are really where it stands out. And my favorite scene in the entire movie is Virginia Madsen. She goes to Cabrini Green and, she's trying to investigate. She goes a couple times, but one of the times she runs into this little boy. And the little boy tells her the story of how this child that was, annoying his mother, he wanted to go across the street to use the bathroom. He does by himself. And the way the kid tells the story, every single time I watch it, I just get chills. I mean, it is the scariest, and some big looking tough dude ran across the street. He ran inside for 5 seconds and his hair turned white. It just turned white. And, they found it in the toilet. And if you can't fix that, better off dead. That kid, you talk about Oscars for Tony Todd. That kid deserved a supporting. I mean, that story just sells the entire. I'm like, holy shit. Like this kid, and he didn't miss a beat. I mean, tells that story like better off dead. Like you don't want that getting chopped off, buddy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that sequence, like like we were talking about when we were texting back and forth, that scene always stood out to me. And I think that scene in and of itself is what really throws this story forward, right? It explains why Candyman's doing what he's doing. Now the people don't believe because the other guy and the gang beat her up, and now they think there is a gang that's doing all the killings and things like that. So I really thought that really sent this story, it kind of piqued your interest, right? Oh, well, what's going to happen now? Now that the people don't believe, now what's going to happen? I mean, we can go back and look at, it and things like that, that people have to believe. And, but I really like that aspect of the story. I thought it was a nice point to jump into the next part of the film. You know what I mean? So I thought that really they did a great job with that.
It did. It catapults this movie and it really establishes the horror. And also, no one is safe. I don't care if you're a child, you could get your freaking thing cut off. Holy shit, And I also think, for what it's worth, we don't see it. We don't see the kid get anything. But that the way it's directed, I mean, you feel it, and the screams of horror and the look on the mother's face. And, I love the way the kid describes, man, his hair turned white. And I love that. I mean, that is really selling the horror of this movie. And, I see a few people in the comments mentioning, how sexuality is always a big theme in Clive's work. And I also see Rainbow saying, yes, that little boy kind of steals this movie for me a little bit. I love him. I think he does a great job. Sean Blue Digital is also in the house. What's going on, good brother? And Slasher Princess, I love the music box like score. The music is wonderful in this. Much like a piano.
Simple. It was simple, but it kept you on the edge of your seat.
Yes, and it's so memorable. I love, Helen's music, and it's a really, really well done movie from a lot of different standpoints. But let's talk a little bit about, because I know with the reboot they get uber into the social context, things like that. In this movie, I felt it's really tackled subtly. And I do think that there's, when we talk about sexuality, this is a story of someone who fell in love with someone of a different race, an interracial relationship, and how he was, wrongfully, brutally murdered because of it, and then becomes this kind of urban legend folk tale. What did you think of how that was tackled in this film? I know how you thought it was tackled in other films was
Right.
bad, just like me, but in this film, what did you think?
Well, I'll be straight up honest with you. The film was so good that I never paid attention, and which is exactly the way it should be. I would think, I think that that's kind of what they were going for, right?
Sure.
So I think that the way that this film is constructed, that for me, and I didn't even notice, you know what I'm saying? Like it was just kind of the way it was. And I thought I don't think it could have been handled better, especially in that era. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? Because that was 30 years ago at this point, so it was, it was, I don't know. I don't want to say taboo because, it's not like that never happens or anything like that, but it was more than it is now. So I thought they handled it very, very well. And like I said, they did it so good that it wasn't even something that I saw, you know what I mean? I didn't even pay attention, look, I like Tony Todd as much as she did. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of how, not sexually, but he was mesmerizing, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know, like I said, could have been handled better.
Yeah, I agree. To me, it's like his presence really sells all of that. I mean, the guy is just money. But I'd agree, and I think that while I love it, and I think it's a big thing that makes this movie stand out in a different way and in the best of ways, I agree wholeheartedly what you said. This movie is a horror movie first. And that stuff, you can figure it out on your own. And you didn't even notice it. That's how mesmerized you were by the whole tale and the story. And there are deeper themes here, though. And I like that we can kind of look for them.
Yes.
As opposed to the newer one where it's basically the entire movie is beating you over the head with what it thinks. I think this one does a really, really good job at kind of balancing everything out. I mean, music, performances, the cinematography, acting, the whole thing. Just really, there's not many weak points here. But I know this is up for debate. Now, a lot of people will say this is a straight up slasher film. I've heard people say this is like folk horror, even. What would you classify this as? Because that's the one question I don't even know if I would know myself. Like, what would you classify this as? Is this a mixed kind of bag with what genre it is? Is it a straight up slasher? What do you think?
That's a good question, man. And if you would have asked me in 1993 or 4, I'd have said, this is slasher, bro. He belongs there with Freddy and Jason and Michael and, all that. But, having age on my side now of being able to look at things, man, I think that folk is probably the best way to put it. You know what I mean? Because it's much more of a tale than, say, Halloween and Friday the 13th. I mean, I guess Freddy could be considered a bit of a tale also, but this it's all in as folklore. It's all in, even through all 3 of these movies, as bad as the other ones are. That's what they play on. That's what they go for. And with the original, I don't see it any other way at this point. I mean, obviously I think he's up there with those guys, you know what I mean, in the pantheon of badass killers, but it's different.
Yes, definitely. And let me ask you, let me even go a step further here. You just mentioned along with Freddy and Jason and all these things. Should Candyman have become one of those names? Or do you think in a lot of ways that this movie should have just been a one-off? Because I sort of do. I don't even know if you ever should have touched this.
Yeah.
What do you think, though?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, I think it could have been. It definitely could have been. But looking back now, I enjoy the sequel. I think it's okay. The third one is a piece of junk. But so looking at those factors, please erase it from my memory, right? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? But it could have been huge. Could have been huge. If they would have handled it correctly, it could have been monster. But we also have to remember that it was a different time, right? We're talking 10 years, 11 years after the golden year. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I don't know, man. That's a tough question, dude. Thanks for stumping me. I don't know, man. I really don't. I mean, listen, if Candyman was the only one, I would have been absolutely fine with it. If there would have been 10 of them, I probably would have watched them all, just like I do Friday the 13th or whatever. You know what I mean? So that's a good question.
Yeah, I think the era this comes out and really defines that too, because Silence of the Lambs was the year before this. Most of your slashers by this point were gone. Freddy was dead by 91. Jason was about to go to hell the following year. Michael Myers was in limbo from 5 to 6. I mean, your big names were really all fizzled out. Even Chucky by 91 was done for a while.
Right.
So a lot of your big names, slasher wise, were not there. And this movie, in my opinion, isn't really a slasher film. There's elements, but I would agree it's the folklore that really sells you. Now, if this movie came out in 1996, 1997, I bet you there would have been 5 to 6 Candyman movies. I really do. I think there would have been an overabundance of them, because then it would have been, oh, we got to bring Candyman back and we got to bring Kevin Williamson to write it. And, that would have probably been what they did. But a lot of what I appreciate about this film is that they didn't go there, especially with this film. I mean, this film really does stay grounded. And I love this whole thing. I think the kills, when they're there, they're not an overabundance. It's not a body count movie by any means, but they're very effective. I know you were mentioning the scene with the therapist or the psychologist, and just go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was telling John in the director's cut, which some of you have probably seen, there's more to that scene. And that scene, for me, is kind of like the amalgam of what Candyman can do, right? You know what I mean? I mean, obviously you had some you had kills. There were great kills. They were all really good kills. But that one right there was so shocking that they cut it. You know what I'm saying? So they wanted to go to that extra degree, which I think that they did a lot in this movie, right? With the race issues, with the sexuality, and they wanted to do that with the violence too. They wanted it to be poetic, maybe, but they still wanted to be able to show it, And this film, it really, it's obviously a classic, and I think most people would agree with that. But if you're right, if this movie would have came out in '96, right before Scream, people would probably talk about Candyman in the general masses like they talk about Scream.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It would have been lumped right in as a neo-slasher, and it's really not.
Right.
And that's why I think this movie really stands out. I look at this movie more on the same page as A Silence of the Lambs, where the two leads have the incredible chemistry, and there's elements of everything, and everything is just so well done, directing, musically, what have you. I want to ask you this, though. The ending of this movie, with the entire I think beautiful shot of the fire burning and Helen trapped inside, and Tony Todd has her in his arms. I mean, it's a wonderful visual. What did you think of the ending of this movie, with, of course, the baby being stolen? And what did you think of that final sequence? Because I think it's just breathtaking to watch visually. But maybe when it goes on, the ending, it kind of suggests, well, why is Tony Todd even in the sequel when you get to the ending of this movie?
Right. Which, horror people or the producers are always trying to figure out ways to bring them back. But I think I agree with you. I think it's amazing. I think that I love how they set up the wood pile before, hey, it's for a party or whatever they said. You know what I mean? They set all that up because it seemed out of place until the very end. Like, what was that in there about? But yeah, I liked it. And I read a lot of stuff online about this, and there's a big thing in some of the communities that it's another one of those situations where it was, they didn't like it because it was a white savior at the end, and you know what I mean? She was white and she was saving the black baby. You know what I mean? I don't take any heed in any of that stuff, right? I don't think that none of any of that stuff was intended, but I'm with you in the fact that the ending of that movie was something that we hadn't seen, right? You know what I'm saying? Where, I mean, I remember I just watched it just the other day, and I still thought, how's she going to get out of here? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. And that's what this movie does, man. That's why it's so good, dude. It really just makes you think. And it continues to make you think the more you watch it.
Yes, and I think that what's really interesting here is that the movie really ends where she's become the urban legend.
Right.
And it's never suggested in any other movies. It ends where she's pretty much the Candyman. You say Helen 5 times in the mirror. Helen comes,
right.
No hair and all to come and kill you. And she kills her fiance or whatever that cheated on her with some student. I thought that was an interesting way to end it. Like, holy shit, she read so much into this that she ended up becoming the myth at the end.
Right.
Is this something that gets dropped in the sequels because Tony Todd is the franchise?
Right.
And Tony Todd is one of the great actors to me and of our generation. But I do think it's interesting they ended it there. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, when the kid throws the hook into the grave, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things where you could think both ways, right? Like, is that an appreciation for getting rid of the real Candyman, or is that you were the Candyman? You were, you caused all, you know what I'm saying? That's what I was thinking about when I was watching.
I never thought of it that way. I thought it was a thank you. I took it as like a salute.
I'm with you. See, but you know what I thought about when I watched it last time? There wasn't a smile on anybody's face, bro.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
Everybody was sad, but then again, I mean, they were sad over. I don't know. I know what you're saying, but I honestly never thought about it that way. That's very. See, this is why it's nice to have more than just your own perspective. It's nice to have a guest that I never looked at it that way. Next time I watch it, I probably will be looking for that now.
I never thought of it that way either till this very last time that I watched it. I'm like, what is, maybe that's why it's such a good, Clive Barker can do that to you. Stephen King can do that to you. John Carpenter can do those types of things, so I don't know. Maybe that was the point, right? Make people think.
Yeah. And I think they did
an answer.
Sure. I think they did a hell of a job. If you had to rate this one out of 10, what would you give this?
Dude, I'm so much of a mark for this film. It's okay. Let's say 9.5. I'll give it a 9.5.
I'll go right with you, and I'd probably lean 10. I think this is.
That's it's hard. I don't know, man. I like The Thing, is a 10 for me. You know what I mean? And it's hard not to give this film a 10. It's hard not to. Rainbow
says 10 with all caps and more letters. 10. I think so too. I think Ty Dillinger would give it a 10. Any of my wrestling fans in the house. Damn. Okay, I don't know. Is Kevin not in agreement? Would he not go 10? It's been hard to keep up with the chat, guys. So I'm sorry. Aiden Baver says I'm giving it a 10. I think it's worthy of it, man. 10. So I don't know. I think the original Candyman is a wonderful film. I really do. It's one that I'm happy it's celebrating its 30th anniversary because that was really, I was thinking in the back of my mind a few months ago, I'm like, man, I never did Candyman. And then I thought of you and I'm like, oh man, we should do it over the summer. And then I looked and it said
30
October is the 30th anniversary. I went, holy shit. I was like, we've got to get a show on that. So this Sunday.
The stars aligned.
It aligned, man. It's pretty magical. So this Sunday, the 30th anniversary of this film, I say if you haven't rewatched it for this holiday season yet, highly recommend you do. I think it's an all-time classic. Tony Todd, Virginia Madsen, Bernard Rose's direction, the music, just an all-time great horror film. Fuck 10, it's 100. Hell yeah. Wow. Okay. Giving it 9.5. What a way to make a living. Hell yeah. I give it a 19. 19. Okay, we're breaking the scale here. To be fair, John Carpenter's The Thing is my favorite film ever. Oh, I think I know somebody else who would feel that way. Yeah, he might just be next to me wearing a Dodgers hat. I don't know, though. Maybe. But yeah, so the original film, and like we were saying, before we get into the sequels, I would have been fine if they never did a sequel because I don't think you can. I don't think it's an entity that like that. But in 1995, the powers that be declared we must make a sequel, by God, and they did. 1995's film Candyman 2, Farewell to the Flesh. The Candyman has arrived in New Orleans and sets his sights on a young woman whose family was ruined by the immortal killer years before. Yes, Farewell to the Flesh. Now, I think you're a little bit bigger of a fan of this than me, but I don't know, man. What do you think? What are your initial thoughts on this? Do you remember when this came out? Because I know you said you watched the original around this time. Were you excited when this came to the theater? What memories rush back when you say this film?
You know, I don't remember. I don't remember this film because, we kind of talked about what they did with the advertising. I remember, again, watching it at home on a tube TV, no flat screens. You know what I'm saying? So, and I know at least AJ knows what I'm talking about. Anyways,
Sure.
but it wasn't like, oh my God, I got to see this movie, right? Because I think they killed it in the advertising. But when I saw it, I was like, oh, I mean, it's just as good as any, I don't know, Friday the 13th after part 4. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like I'm a huge fan of the film, but I definitely think that, like, if I was going to sit down and watch these movies, I would be dreading part 3, which I didn't want to, but this one, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind sitting down and watching these back to back. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I like sucky movies. I don't, but the first one, I'm such a fan of the first one. I think the women in these movies are beautiful, man. You know what I'm saying? I was young, but I think that this film has some merit. And, I think it has good parts. It might probably has more bad parts than it has good parts. But I mean, I don't think it's that bad. I think if a horror fan who's never seen the film was to sit down and watch it, they wouldn't immediately get on the internet and complain about it. Well, everybody does that, but you know what I'm saying? It wouldn't be their first instinct to shit on the movie like you would with 3. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just think it's does it stack up to the original? Of course not. But is it watchable, serviceable? Sure.
It doesn't seem to evoke that much of a reaction one way or the other. That's the thing I found interesting about this film, because I'll be honest with you, man, I watched the film once years ago. And that's why for show prep, I made sure I rewatched this, because I was like, I really can't go off memory. I've seen the movie once. I remember hating it, like thinking it was horrible. And I rewatched it, and about 45 minutes in, I'm like, I like this. Like, why does this not get talked about more? Right around the 50-minute mark, this movie fucking crashes and burns. I mean, it's like, all right, like plummets. For me personally, I'll get into that, but we got a couple people saying, seems I'm the one who liked it less. Oh, it's okay. Hey, man, I've actually heard a lot of people say they don't like the original Candyman. I love it, but it's what it is. 30 years old. Yeah, we were just saying that. I'm super excited to celebrate. That's what we're doing this stream. Clive Barker came with the story and produced it. Rainbow saying this one has grown on me. I think that's the case with a couple people. The sequel had Veronica Cartwright, of course, Alien fame, and I know you and I love Alien. I like it quite a bit. Love the New Orleans setting, story, and score a lot. Okay, wow. Okay, Aiden's all for it. Shout out to the 200-pound tube TV. Hell yeah,
that's right, AJ.
Before Tubi, there was tube TVs.
That's
God
right.
damn it, and they weighed as much as me. I liked Candyman 2, Farewell of the Flesh. Okay. Candyman 3 is Hellraiser Revelations of the series. Oof, I don't know if I'd even go that far, but maybe Don will. I don't know. Okay, so Kelly Rowland takes over for the lead in this. They seem to have a big infatuation with the trilogy, at least, to cast voluptuous blondes as the lead.
Right.
Madsen, Kelly Rowland, Donna D'Errico.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, whoever produced this movie. I appreciate that. I am cool with a beautiful blonde lead. There's no issue there. And Candyman seems to turn Tony Todd on. I don't know.
Right. That's right.
I just think she's a step down for Virginia Madsen, but she doesn't do a poor job. Personally, I think you could have had a really good story here had you stuck to one thing, but I think there's a couple too many subplots going on. You have the stuff with her brother.
Right.
And is he not innocent? We know he's all innocent. Right. That kind of hurts the film's pacing for me. The storyline I wish they had gone with was she's a teacher, and she has all these kids in her class, and they believe in the Candyman, and she says, hey, at one point, I'm going to prove to you he's not real. And she looks in the mirror, she says it, nothing happens, but that can set the Candyman off to kind of stalk her as he does. I would have totally gone from the kid that goes missing in the class, and maybe one by one, maybe the kids are getting picked off. I would have went more there. I thought that was the most interesting story. And of course, the one kid's dad was the pastor. I really love that actor. I always remember him in the Spider-Man films. I forget the actor's name. He sadly passed on, but he does a wonderful job in this. I would have liked that story here. Do you feel that this movie maybe perhaps plays it a little too safe, or that this movie was just kind of lost in a weird time? Because 1995 was the biggest transition year, of that decade. And funny enough, it's right in the middle.
Yeah.
I feel like we hadn't quite got to the neo slashers yet. We didn't really get out of whatever the first 5 years of the 90s were. This was a film that I feel like gets caught in the middle, thus invokes the middle kind of reactions. But what do you think, man?
Yeah, I mean, 1995, right? That's the year it came out. And that was just a down time, don't you think, for horror in general? But let's talk about who directed this movie.
Yes.
Bill Condon, right?
Yes.
Gods and Monsters and Beauty and the Beast and
Dream Girls.
Dream Girls, right? You know what I'm saying? It's so weird, to see that. But I thought, listen, the film was the filmmaking was good. I mean, it wasn't spectacular, but I hate to keep talking about the third one because we're going to get there. But I mean, this was a serviceable early movie from Bill Condon. Very surprising looking at what he's done since then. But I thought that this film is absolutely it's like the middle kid, right? You know what I mean? Kind of get ignored, you know what I'm saying, at some point. But I think that that's part of the reason, the time that it came out, the spectacularness, is that a word, of the original. And so that made this film a step down automatically, right? You know what I'm saying? They couldn't have done it, right? So I think that no matter what they did in this film, it never ever could have reached any type of status of a classic.
Yes.
You know what I mean? How often does a sequel do that anyway? Very, very rarely, right? So I think that, it had all the elements, but that, the brother, the character, the guy who played the brother, who I've seen a million times, he was terrible. He was
so was the cop.
And I was just going to say,
the cop, that guy sucked.
Yeah. So you know what I'm saying? So you get, Kelly Rowan did a good job. She's super good looking. I thought, she wasn't Virginia Madsen. She wasn't Donna D'Errico, but let's,
somewhere in the middle.
Listen, bro. Right. But if she'd asked me out, I'm going. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So, yeah. I think that if they could have gotten a bigger star, that may have elevated this film, but I don't know. I don't know what they could have done. I think it was destined to be mediocre from the beginning.
I would agree with that. I think that's a good way to look at it. You were saying the star. Mateo suggests maybe Patricia Arquette, and I think she's a much better actress than Kelly Rowland. Right. Maybe that would have worked, and she had horror background with Dream Warriors, and it would have been pretty interesting to see. I would have been all for that. I think, for all the good actors in this movie, I mean, it's great to see Tony Todd back. I like Kelly Rowland. I like the pastor. I like some of the kid actors. There's some bad acting in this, and I love Veronica Cartwright usually. I didn't care for her in this film. I thought she was a little bit just wasn't interested. And funny enough, she did an interview for the Blu-ray that's now out of print. And I found it online. She didn't seem interested at all in talking about this fucking movie.
Oh, really?
Completely glossed over it. I mean, if she covered it for 40-45 seconds, I'd tell you that was was a lot. I don't even think it was a minute. So she didn't remember this movie too fondly. I don't know if it was for her performance or because she didn't like the movie or with the experience. I don't know.
Did she Alexis Dubin it?
She might be into some Alexis Dubin, but again, who knows? Maybe they'll do a 4K down the road and she'll show up on an interview after declining to sign stuff. Who knows? Maybe she's Alexis Dubin, Galen Ross. I would have to agree, though. This is kind of a movie that was destined to be mediocre. I mean, they have the opening where the long-haired guy from the original film, he gets killed.
Yeah.
Promoting his book, whatever. This is a movie, too, where I feel like a hypocrite for not liking because it doesn't really carbon copy the original. Now, the music is a carbon copy. You got the same guy, and it's basically almost the same score.
Right.
But there were a lot of different things. They changed the setting. Which instead of Cabrini Green, now we're in New Orleans. Instead of no narration, we have this guy narrating the entire movie. This oh, are you ready for Mardi Gras? That plays throughout the whole fucking film. This guy shows up. Oh, and have you heard the Candyman? I'll be honest, about 30 minutes in, I'm like, fuck, this guy got to show. Yeah, and he didn't. I was like, geez. And honestly, you would think, okay, sequel, they're going to up the body count like crazy. Not really. I mean, maybe it does have a higher body count, but it's not noticeably higher. It feels very equal. So I feel like a hypocrite because if you're one of those people that, oh, it's a carbon copy of the original, god damn them. Oh, they did something different, god damn them. It's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Right.
And this movie really didn't carbon copy. But I will say this: the only thing it does carbon copy really cripples it because in the original film, it was always you, Helen. It was always Virginia Madsen.
Right.
In this film, it's like, all right, forget about her. It was always you. Always Kelly Rowland. That's my biggest problem with this movie is at the 50-minute mark, they suggest that she is a descendant of him and he is her great-great-great-grandfather. Holy shit. I hate that story. I hate it. Like, why did you go family route here? I just felt it really cheapened the film and actually kind of hurt the chemistry that those two could have had. It should have just been normal, But what did you think of the whole family angle here? I found it quite messy.
It reminded me of Halloween, right? Where
so.
they just said, "Oh yeah, it was always Helen, but maybe it was you." You know what I mean?
Yeah, the sequel now it's you.
Yeah, which they pulled that in the third one too. But yeah, I I'm with you. I think that they could have handled that better. Like it seems a lot like, and it happens a lot with these movies, especially when you're making sequels, is they're like, let's get it out there. Let's hurry up while we could cash in. And even though this was 3 years later, but it seems like they're always in a rush, right? Like, oh, we need to have this plot point here and maybe this plot point here. And how do we get there? They're related. Ooh, so it seems like that's kind of a regular thing, especially in horror movies. But yeah, it just didn't, that aspect just didn't work. I mean, like I said, it would have made me engage more in the story if they would have came up with something different.
Yeah, and it was completely unneeded. Like you really could have just been, this is a teacher in New Orleans, and these kids are afraid of the Candyman. She's trying to prove to them it's not real. And then maybe, the Candyman killed my father. Something like personal to make it personal, but not that personal where that's my great-great-granddad.
Right.
Like, fuck, like, I don't know. That I really didn't like. But I will say this, that I think the best thing in this movie, sequence-wise, is where they actually show the flashback as to what happened to Tony Todd.
Absolutely.
Like, if you want to walk us through that sequence, please do, because I think it's wonderful. It's the best thing in this movie for me.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about it a lot in the original, and I believe there's a couple flashes, right, in the original, or am I thinking? Anyways, so what they do is they actually show the sequence in the second film where it shows the daughter who is, I mean, she was a beautiful woman, but God damn it, if she didn't look exactly like every other blonde in every other movie in this series. Like, I was like, because I kept saying to myself, is that Kelly Rowan? You know what I'm saying? Is that her face? Anyways, so they showed that they were holding her back while they were cutting off his arm and the bees and spreading honey on him, the whole lore part they decided to show. Now, I don't know. I mean, and it was an okay sequence, but I'm not sure if they didn't do that because they were lacking quality of story. You know what I'm saying? I kind of felt that way as I was watching it. What about you?
Maybe they did. But I will say I do think it's effective. Like I think to give me the visual of it and to actually smear honey on him and see all of these miserable, evil people that did this. I mean, it makes you feel a lot more sympathy towards the Candyman. And I think it was well done. Tony Todd does a great job acting.
Yes.
And even the lover, no, you can't stop. It's a heart-wrenching scene. Now, in the original film, they kind of tell that story, and we're left to imagine it, and I can imagine it. But to put the visual here, to me, and actually execute it well, it's not over the top, it's not hokey, right. It's fucking horrific. Yeah. What happens to the Candyman? I love that sequence. To me, it's the best thing in this film. But the finale of this movie, what in the fuck? It is like a really bad Nightmare on Elm Street ending. Like it feels like it's Freddy set up. So it's the Candyman in a house. There's for some fucking reason, maybe I missed it. There's all water, around.
Yeah, no explanation, none whatsoever.
Okay, because I thought I rewound. I was like, and I must have missed this. I don't know why the fuck they're drowning. Whatever. Right. The Candyman, they're in the house, and then basically it's all the mirror. She smashes the mirror, and the Candyman turns into like horrible CGI glass, and like what the fuck? And then she rescues the pastor's son. And basically lives happily ever after. I hate the ending of this movie. To me, the ending of this movie takes it down like 4 points. It's so bad.
I think that one of the reasons, obviously, the story part is terrible, but one of the things was that CGI was, and I understand it was early CGI, but that it takes you out of caring. You know, you're like, what the fuck is this? Now he's shattering like glass. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the Lawnmower Man movies.
Yeah, same era.
Yeah, right. You know, that's what it reminded me of. And when I saw that, you know, I shouldn't be thinking about other movies while I'm watching them. You know what I'm saying? I should be interested in what's going on screen. But I kept thinking, is that Jeff Fahey or is that Tony Todd? You know,
so, when you have to ask that question, you're in trouble.
Yeah, you're either blind or no. But no, I agree with you. I mean, you're right, and you know, I think that I'm very. I consider myself a pretty hardcore critic at most things, and maybe that's but in some cases, like I just feel like I gave it a break for some reason, and I can't exactly explain why that. Maybe because it wasn't so bad, like you said, for the first 55 minutes of the movie, that I didn't. I don't know. I don't know, because I consider myself pretty hard on movies. I don't know. It's an interesting conundrum when I think about this movie, because I enjoyed the first half of the movie more than half of the movie.
Me too. I would say the same thing. I rewatched. I'm like 45 minutes in. I'm like, man, I was too hard in this movie. Like, what was I thinking? And then
there it is.
The rest of I swear, the scene where this movie turns, I told you behind the scenes when we started, but for people watching, is where she goes to this fucking random guy in the street and he explains, "Oh, you're the fucking long lost granddaughter. Here's a painting. Holy shit." That scene, and then Candyman kills him. Weak. I just don't like that scene. I feel like it really hurts the rest of this film. It's like that point, I pinpoint. It's like, this is where we went wrong. We should have just followed the missing boy. I'm trying to save him, which I guess you could say, oh, hey, you know, they were doing that in the original with the baby, but she had an actual relationship with this kid. This was one of her favorite kids in the class. He was afraid. She was telling him there's no such thing. Right. She even goes to visit his father, the pastor. I love that scene. Yep. I liked the personal connection here. But to me, to make it about her and her family, it really hurt what potential this story could have been and it could have had to make it an above average movie. Because that's really, at the end of the day, what this is. It's a very average, painfully fucking average movie that you maybe are a little bit more lenient on. I maybe be a little bit more harsh on. You know, but and that's going to go for every two people that watch it. I bet you'll get one or the other. I don't know, though. For me, I would say this is a swing and a miss. There are a couple of things I want to mention here. Now, for the promotion, we were talking about this before the show. They initially had a poster that I don't know if we've ever seen the light of day. I don't think it has seen the light of day. I don't know. Have you?
I've never seen it.
I've never seen it either. Okay, it's pretty much been erased or omitted, if you will. The initial poster of this movie was going to be more like slasherific, if you will, where the Candyman was going after Kelly Rowan. And because of the OJ trial that was going on right around this time, that was 94 going into 95, someone said, no, put the kibosh on that. We can't have a, black man trying to decapitate a white blonde-haired woman on our poster. So they omitted all those posters, and thus you get this kind of theatrical one-sheet poster. I don't know. What do you think of this poster? Anything?
Yeah, no, again, mediocre, bro. I know
it goes with the movie, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't
see it once and never think about it again.
Yeah, it was not a big box office hit at all. I think it may be, again, mediocre money. I can look up right here. I have that up right here. The movie had a budget of $6 million, made about just under 14. So I guess, as usually your money times two is a profit. So slight profit. And I want to say this too: the sequences of with using the real bees, because I've seen people mention that in the comments all night. We haven't touched on that. I think they're wonderfully done, as opposed to the shitty special effects at the end. The bees, even in this movie where they're emerging from his cheek, wonderful, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. He got paid a bunch of money for that, didn't he? Because he got stung a bunch of times or something like that. 27 times.
I think he got stung like 23 times. Somebody said. So that's is what it is. Yeah. Tony Todd's a trooper, man. We gotta love Tony. Got a couple comments here. Wait, Tony Todd in New Orleans? Is this a Hatchet prequel?
Yeah.
Ask Adam Green. Who knows? Candyman would fit alongside old Universal monsters, tragic figures. Definitely, he's a tragic, romantic, gothic figure. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Brother Tom is in the house. I think you commented before this. I'll get your first comment. Candyman 1 is the house at Halloween with full-size brand name candy bars, and Farewell to Flesh is the house with the fun-size candy. Good, but not great. Yeah, I think a lot of people would say it too.
So three's the one with apples and razor blades, right?
and the fucking reboot is the house that gives raisins. Fucking, where were we?
Sorry.
I think we were here. Flashback was beautifully filmed. Definitely sad to watch. Absolutely agree. Yes, the flashback alone definitely makes this movie worth being made. I would think so too. I really like rewatching it back and then seeing how poorly it's done in Candyman 3 when they completely reshoot that scene, but at night.
Right. Yeah, man. Come on.
Weird, but it's much better done here than there. Finale's bizarre, but enjoyable. I don't know. I would say the finale is the weakest part of this movie for me. Like, I don't like. It's just like, when did this become a fucking Freddy movie? Like, what? Like, that was at least what I said to myself. Sad indeed. Didn't give me Nightmare vibes, but Hellraiser vibes. Did it give you Hellraiser vibes?
Well, I think I would be willing to bet that maybe because Aiden knew that it was, Clive Barker, maybe that had a lot of influence or something like that. I personally didn't know at the time, so probably, I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but I didn't see it at all.
Yeah, I didn't either, to be honest with you. FMV video game CGI, sure. It makes me feel bad for Candyman and hate the people who kill him. And that's the intent. That's truly the horror in his story. I think that's what's so brilliant. And to visualize that here, I thought was really, really well executed by the director, Bill Condon. Mateo, maybe I'm getting confused with the Frighteners, Peter Jackson. Is there a murderer in the bathroom? Yes, there is. Right at the beginning, the long-haired man who tells the tale in the first film, he gets killed in the bathroom by the Candyman. It's an interesting opening kill. It's fine. It's a good, that. Yeah, set the tone, play the music. It's definitely not the worst sequel of all time. It's just, to me, it's like, I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit more harsh on it. At the end of Freddy's Dead, it kind of makes you sorry for Krueger because you find out he was picked on. And yeah, no, a lot of, I kind of always liked, well, I guess I can ask you that before I keep going on the comments. What are your thoughts on the sympathetic villains in not even just horror movies, but it could be, superhero films? Do you like when they go to that well? Do they go to that well too many times?
Just to be straight honest, this is the only one. I it's not usually my thing at all.
And what about it turns you off, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I'm old school. There's a white hat and there's a black hat.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I it can be done well. It can be done well, the Joker is a good example, things like that. You know what I'm saying? The anti-hero type, so I don't like a sympathetic villain usually because it lessens the impact of the hero. So for me, that's not my thing. Usually this movie is the exception to the rule for me. What about you? I mean,
I would agree that this movie is an exception to that rule because Tony Todd is that great. And right. It's a big part of the performer. But like I always point to not a horror film, but Spider-Man 2 with Alfred Molina's Doc Ock. You meet him and he's this scientist and he had his dream. And within a matter of seconds, his wife, his dream, his life, everything collapsed before his eyes. I get why he became a psychopath. I get why he started killing innocent people and stealing money to rebuild. It was his dream. And the part of me understands because I saw that man before, and we see Tony Todd before he's turned into the Candyman monster.
Right.
We see that he was just an artist that fell in love with someone, and there's nothing wrong with that, no matter what color anyone is.
Right.
But these people in this time era, they felt and took exception and unfortunately did what they did. But I think it does add to this character. I don't mind sympathetic villains, but I think it's got to be done right. Exactly. I think that's the thing. But it's definitely an interesting debate to kind of bring up. And if people want to tune in the comments and chime in, please do. Is it that bad? I'm sorry. Is it bad that I like Candyman 3 Day of the Dead? Well, we're going to get there, Nanette. I don't know. He got paid for each sting, I think. Anthony, welcome, brother. Flying V's, baby. Let's see. The remake is the house that turns off the lights and pretends they're not home. Yeah, that's the old people. Sure. Nightbreed is a hella underrated Clive Barker film. Gotta love it. And people saying I'd rather. Okay, so Transitioning on into 1999's third entry of the series, this one directed by Turi Meyer, who you may remember from a straight-to-video film called The Sandman's Last Rites. This is Candyman 3, Day of the Dead. Nothing to do with the George Romero film, unfortunately. The Candyman is back, trying to convince his descendant and artist to join him. Yes, Candyman Part 3. Now, I didn't plan this before the show, but I've been asking you all of it. Okay, got to say this. That is a badass freaking cover.
I can't get it to look right. Sorry.
Little shiny.
Yeah.
Little
it's
shiny.
The best drawn video release.
Which that cover is way better than that movie deserves. I wish April Fool. I wish this son of a bitch could have got that good of a cover from,
John would rather stare at this cover for an hour and a half than to watch that piece of crap.
That cover looks like a cool PS1 video game, fighting the Candyman. Let's go, that's really right. Cool. I've asked you with the other two films where you were, how you remember. I guess we'll go here with this one too, because I know you have not seen the reboot all the way. So where were you? Do you remember seeing this movie for the first time? Was this a late bloomer on you, or did you see this when it came out?
No, it was kind of the same situation. So where I'm from, where I was at the time, it took a long time even to get a Vestron release back then. So I probably didn't see this till about a year after it came out. Also on, I'm guessing it was VHS at the time.
I think it was Artisan put this out, who also people remember put the Blair Witch Project DVD out. So right around the same time, 99.
Listen, we need to talk about Blair Witch at some point.
Of course.
Anyways. But this is what I remember, and I remember this clear as day. I remember I turned it off in the middle, and I didn't even rewind the son of a bitch to take it back.
Wow.
I was so bad. I love Donna D'Errico, right? And when I started FHMP before you came on, my point was I was going to do pause button moments, right?
I remember that.
So I'm waiting. She never got naked one time, dude. I was so bad. You know what I mean? So I turned it off, and I never finished it until probably many years later.
Fair enough.
Probably in the 2010s, the first time I ever watched it all the way through.
Yeah. Now it's funny with me. What happened with me was I saw this director's first movie, The Sandman's Last Rites, and it was one of those movies that was a failed horror franchise attempt. They were trying, it was once again in that transitional period for horror, 1995, where, everyone was trying to make the next big thing. And that was his attempt to kind of make the next Freddy, the Sandman. And the movie, it's it is what it is. It's kind of a lifeless, dull movie. It's a movie that will put you to sleep, funny enough, Sandman. But it kind of fits. Right. So he turns around here and writes and directs this movie, a straight to video movie. And I will say this, that I've noticed that I've not found one positive review of this movie on the internet. Yeah. Not one. I will say this, the guy had no money. I mean, the guy had $1 million budget to make this movie. It went straight to video. They were probably shooting with fucking really poor quality cameras. I mean, you could tell. Right. I don't know how the Vestron Blu-ray looks. That would be something I'm interested. How does it look? Good.
Yeah, okay. It's actually pretty good. Surprisingly good, actually.
That is surprising because honestly, every other version I've seen in this movie, it looks like dog shit. Like the first two films, they look theatrical. They look like there was some money behind it. I mean, the $6 million with the sequel, literally, minus $5 million to make this movie. And it shows. It truly shows. You get a Playboy playmate to be in the lead who doesn't want to get nude. I don't know. Right. You got to play with what you have, in my opinion. That's just me, though. Well, it's both of us. I guess I can speak both of us.
Absolutely.
There. I will say this. While we're negatively probably going to regard this movie, I don't think it's the biggest piece of shit sequel of all time. Like, I don't. I would say there's some actors in here I like. Nick Corey, who's actually, I want to get his real name right here, who's from Nightmare on Elm Street, the original. He played Rod. The actor's name, of course, is, I want to get his name right here. I'm looking in here. Isn't it Juju? Oh man, what is his damn name? I'm sorry, just Ju Garcia. Drew Garcia, who I always remember in the original Nightmare on Elm Street, he pops up here as kind of the male protagonist. Really like him. I wish he was in the movie more. He gets kind of written out halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
And also the lead detective in this, Ernie Hudson Jr., who you may remember his father from the Ghostbuster films and movies like Leviathan. He does an okay job here, much better than the cop in part 2. I'll say that. I think you have a couple of good actors, and of course you have Tony Todd. So I will say this: I'd watch this over the reboot just for Tony Todd, just on that alone.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. For me though, this movie really it's one of those movies I went in with such low standards. There's some okay sequences. There's the opening in a bathroom where they use that really bright white, almost looks like a sanitary room to do your first scare, and then the title comes up in blue. That's a lot of this movie's kind of But what did you think, man? Did any of the kills in this movie stand out to you? Did you like the whole Candyman art exhibit that they use in this film?
Well, first of all, let me tell anybody who's never seen this movie and is thinking about watching it, the scene that you're talking about with the white room, that's the best Donna D'Errico looks in this movie. She looks great. She looks great in the whole movie, but that's the best. That's as good as it's going to get. But the like you said, they were so shoestrung by budget. I think that it's real, and that's one of the negatives about the Blu-ray. It looks really good, so the kills are like, you're like, oh, maybe I should have bought it on VHS and figured it out. So that's one of the bad things about it. But like you said, I mean, I don't want to knock them because no money. TV director, now producer, that's all he does now is produce, and everybody was a TV actor. You know what I'm saying? So it's really, really hard to absolutely shit on the film based on, if you know all of that stuff. Now I'm still going to shit on it, but I'm just saying it's hard because, they did the best. And what's frustrating more than anything is that they didn't want to give him money to make the film.
No, they initially they offered $3 million, right, which was half of the budget. Which that would have been a kick in the balls enough. Right. Then they said, "No, we're not going to give you 3. We're going to give you 1." Right. So I don't know. I guess maybe sympathy goes out for at least for me. I feel kind of bad because if that happened to me, and then everyone was your movie's a piece of shit. I would kind of feel bad personally. I read here that. Let's see. There was no budget for an opening credit sequence, and the production company told the director to just play the credits over a dream sequence. Wanting something more cinematic, the cinematographer and director worked together to find extra equipment and leftover film rolls from principal photography that blacked out the windows of a garage, and using Candyman's hook prop, filmed an opening credit sequence at no extra cost. So to me, these guys cared. Right. No matter what we're gonna say. I do think that there was effort. I do think that Terry Meyer realized that this was a big opportunity for him. He'd done his independent movie. He did this, and he honestly, he wrote a lot of. He wrote Leprechaun 2, Wrong Turn 2. He was actually wrote quite a few films over the years, along with producing a lot of TV. I see the effort here. I really just think this was you gave them nothing, and they really couldn't make much out of it. It would take an extraordinary amount of talent, and they didn't really have that.
Right. It was like he was taking a gamble, right? This can really send me up the ladder. And, with a character like Candyman, with a story like Candyman, you'd think your chances got to be great of making it something, you know what I mean? And then in turn, making your career better. But it was a miss. It was a gamble, and I don't think that the outcome is exactly what he was expecting.
No,
but you got to give him credit for continuing on. He could have just said, "Look, I ain't doing this." And
yeah, I think it could have been far worse. I think too. Like I've seen some movies that I consider far fucking worse than this sequel wise in slasher movies. And we were talking before. What would a Candyman film look in the neo slasher era? This was right at the tail end of neo slashers. And I think there is a little bit of that influence there. The people at the art show seem to be a little bit more self-aware. You have some interesting sequences. You have one couple having sex and the Candyman kills them, all the bees.
Right.
It's an okay sequence. The main thing that people remember is the gang. that they want to summon Candyman to kill her, and in turn,
Yeah.
he kills them. What did you think of that sequence?
I thought it was a mistake. You know what I mean? Because I really thought it took me out of any interest that I had whatsoever. I'm like, it's like they were like, let's think of the biggest cliche of people that we can come up with, and that's exactly what they did. Nose rings and different color hair and leather bracelets, and I'm like, okay, all right, where are we going? You know what I mean? And I didn't think it was a good call.
Neither did I. Did you feel anything story-wise here? Did you like some of the direction? I mean, they insist that there's possibly an imposter in this film, which I thought, wow, why is that in this movie? Really?
Right. Well, it reminds me of the Halloween movies. You know how later on the Thorn stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's kind of what like. What? Help me out here, brother. Help me out. I need to know what you're thinking, or this ain't going to work out between us. You know what I mean? The whole movie thing, that's kind of what I thought about that. I was like, okay, I guess this is where we're headed,
Yeah, and the whole Dia de los Muertos thing and throwing that into it. I mean, yeah. I really do think somebody gave a shit here. I just think that it was really, they couldn't make, chicken shit into chicken salad. I think they were giving chicken shit and they were like, we'll try, but fuck, like this is
a lot of miscues. You know what I mean? A lot of decisions that I'm sure if they could go back, they would go the opposite way that they did. How else do you say that? I guess.
No, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Was there anything here that stood out to you that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, one of the things for me was the whole Candyman is missing a backbone throughout the three movies, right? Obviously, one movie, towers above all the other things, but there's the sub stories are so disjointed in my mind. You know what I mean? So, I don't have a problem necessarily with them changing locations. The original took place in Chicago, and then we moved to New Orleans, and then we moved to LA, and then it's in the second one, it became about the mirror. And in the third one, it was about the paintings. And, so it just seemed to me like it was very disjointed over the series. Now, I know people are going to say, have you seen Friday the 13th?
Yeah.
But you know what? There was always something keeping those films in line. Whether it was Camp Crystal Lake, whether it was the mother-son relationship from the first, there was always something. And for me, Tony Todd could only do so much with the sequels. You know what I'm saying? I mean, obviously loved Tony Todd, loved him in all the movies, but in those other ones, there were so many things that took me out of the movies that they were much, much harder to watch than the original. And I know that's obvious, but I don't know. I think that for me, that was what the big deal was for me, is that you took me on such a ride that I can't even comprehend why it's still called Candyman at this point. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I'd read that Bernard Road had written a initial sequel where he wanted it to maybe be a prequel, and or maybe around the time where we'd meet Daniel Robitaille, the name of the real Candyman, where we'd meet him before the tragedy happened. And I mean, maybe that would have been an interesting movie. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know, man. Like we were talking, we don't think either of these sequels are the greatest. We were saying, was it even really worth doing? Let me ask you this. Let's turn the creative book on you. Okay. Let's say you're at the table, it's 1994, and they hey, Don Nice, what would you do with Candyman sequel? You have two options: shoot it down, or would you have a creative idea to shoot for?
Well, okay. So if we're talking about for free, I would say end it here. But if they wanted to pay me,
they're going to pay you. I promise they'll pay you.
Okay. I mean, I just think for me and my sensibilities is you start where the other left off, right? You know what I mean? Whether it be 2 months down the road, whether it be a year down the road, I think you got to stay in Chicago. I think that's important. I can't think of an idea as to where changing locations is going to be integral to the story, right? I understand that it was in the South. He was a slave, but Candyman was in the original Cabrini Green was just as important, and
Yes,
the area
setting makes the movie.
right. So when you take it out of that, you can take the lore and move it, but it's going to be a harder sell. So I think how you do that, maybe we go back to the baby's mother, and I thought her character could be interesting. Maybe something with her, or maybe the baby.
Don, wait till you hear about the reboot.
Oh, Jesus.
Wait till you hear about the reboot.
Okay, but I think for me, that's what would have worked for me, maybe, and it would have had to been done right. But I think maybe what you do is you get a cast and you get a director that's going to do it. And I know it's hard to do on a horror sequel, but I don't know. For me, I think that might have worked if they would have kept it in the same place and kept the storyline linear. That might have worked better for me. What about you? I mean, I personally, I would probably have just. I mean, if they're going to pay me, I'm going to give them a story. And maybe that was the situation, but maybe you just end it. I don't know.
I know it's funny because it's like in reality, like my heart would say no, like just don't touch it. But again, when you involve money and when you involve these little gimmicks that the government sends to your house every week called bills that you got to pay, and if you're asking me, Grande, come up with a creative horror story, I'll pay you a shit ton of money. Shit, that now it's like, okay, if you're really throwing that at me, I really don't think they were too far off with the setup. I think I would have, like I said, Kelly Rowland, you could have kept the same cast, crew, whatever. I would have just no family element. Just it's the kids in this classroom, and they hear the story, and maybe because they insinuate that he killed the kid in the first one with the bathroom scene. He stole the baby. Make it about the kids. Maybe the kids are the leads. Something like that. Something to give it a little bit different of a flavor. And then Kelly Rowan is maybe the hero of the movie that has to, battle the big bad Candyman. Something like that. That's maybe where I would have went with it. But again, like you said, maybe untouchable. And if we're picking up where the first one left off, Candyman ain't the villain anymore. It's Helen is the villain. So again, if that's really hard to do. So I don't know. Personally, kind of is what it is. But if you come in full circle, Candyman 3, how to rate this one. I don't think we rated part 2 either. So we can give me part 2 and part 3 ratings.
I would rate part 2 a 5. I mean, I think that's probably maybe even a 5.5, depending on my mood. But yeah, I think that's probably max 5.5.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What about 3?
I think the rating it has on IMDb right now is probably about right. That's
what is the rating? I actually don't know.
It's like a 3.9 or something.
3.9. Ooh, yeah. Okay.
So you know what? To be honest with you, in the world, in the pantheon and the canon of all horror, that's not terrible. You know what I'm saying? I mean, listen, I've seen some 2s, bro. You know what I'm saying? I've seen some 1s and some -3s, but it's not that bad. So I think that's fair. 3.5 or a 4. I'd go 4. I'd definitely say solid 4 for me.
Okay, so we went from a 9.5 to a 10 to a 5 to a 4 or maybe a 3.5.
Right.
I would say 10. The second one, man, the 4.5, and then I'd say the third one like a 3.5. It's right. Yeah, we're right in the same ballpark for most of these. I don't know though. It really does beg the question, did these even really need to? But you're right. Again, is it better than Return to Sleepaway Camp? Sure. Is it better than Creepshow 3? Sure. Is it better than Hellraiser Revelation? Sure. Are these movies better than the Elm Street remake? Absolutely. There's always going to be worse shit. Right. So I don't know. It doesn't give me I don't want to rant on Candyman 3.
Right.
The next movie, you may just get full John Grande rant. I don't know. Let's get to the comments though first.
Please.
Jude Garcia, he was so damn good. He was written out. That's basically what they do. About halfway through this film, the police take him away, and I'm like, God damn it, that was your best actor that you had. I would have had him be the lead. I think he was a good actor, man. I don't love Candyman 3, but I enjoyed it. Okay, fair enough. That's. I don't think that's a unfair criticism. Original Hellraiser cost $1 million, but the filmmaker behind Candyman 3 was no Clive Barker. Also, got to say, different times. $1 million in 1987 or 86 when it was being filmed is a lot more money than $1 million in 1999.
Right.
So, I mean, that is what it is. And I bet you Clive Barker shot with 35 millimeter. Actually, I know he did. Candyman 3, there's no 35 millimeter to be found here. It's certainly cheap. The world needs a Roy Burns Candyman, LMAO. Well, they kind of go there in this film a little bit. But it's so fucking forgettable. I watched it 2 nights ago and I forgot it. So I couldn't. I would have no idea how to do a Candyman sequel. I don't either. I guess that was just, I kind of piggybacked off what they did. Don gave you a more original idea, which the reboot sort of does. We'll get into it. If you guys ever see that movie called Behind the Mask, one of my favorites. Do you like that movie?
Nah.
Wow, really?
Nah.
What are you? Oh my god! I got to. Well, hold on. Let me say, opening scene with the news report makes it look like Freddie, Jason, Michael were real. Okay, yeah, the whole movie is like that. What didn't you not like about that? I got to hear.
It could have been just the time. I remember getting it immediately when it came out, right? Because I heard such good things about it. Me too. It took me 3 sittings to get through it. I don't know, man. Maybe it was just that time or what, you know what I mean? You know, sometimes you watch a film and you just don't get it at the time, you know what I mean? But I've never went back to revisit it. So when did that come out? Gosh.
16 years? No, 15 years ago, 07.
Okay, so 2007. I haven't seen it since then. So I just remember thinking I could be doing other things right now. So again, I don't know. I should probably go back and watch it, but I just remember 3 sittings and I was like, it reminds me of, in a certain way of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you're like, I'm falling asleep on the couch, I'm 15 minutes in, dude. Why am I falling asleep already? But that's how I remember it. And it's been a long time. So I don't want to shit on it because it could have just been extenuating circumstances, but I did not like it at the time.
I hear that. I love it personally, but I've had those movies as like Hatchet was like, I don't find it boring. I just find it bad. And then everyone else like, what's the fucking greatest slash movie? I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I don't know. But
we talked about that earlier, how some people love, not so good stuff, because it's not so good. You know what I mean? They, and that's just not me at all.
Yeah, for real. Absolutely. Farewell to the Flesh, 7.5 out of 10. And Day of the Dead, I'm not even going to give it. It's not worth it. Wow. It didn't even get a rating. That's how worthless he finds it. I don't know. I would say that's a really high score for Farewell to the Flesh, actually. That's as high as it goes. You're not, definitely. 87, 99, different times.
John, doesn't it deserve a 1 for Donna D'Errico?
I think Donna D'Errico is beautiful. I would even give it some points for Ernie Hudson Jr. and
absolutely. Come on, Aiden, you're killing us, bro.
You're killing me, Smalls. I'm not as big on the original as you, but I don't like the sequels as much as you. Well, that's fair.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's fair. What would you rate them, Kev? Let's hear it. I love Behind the Mask, so much fun. I do too. Wow, surprised you didn't like Behind the Mask, but I get it. Yeah, no, I've said that over the years too. I get why people wouldn't like that movie because at the time it was like, oh, this is the greatest slasher movie, and it's really more of a character study on slasher as opposed to a gory slasher movie. That's what I could see somebody going into it thinking you're going to get that, and it's not that movie. I could totally see if that's what happened.
Yeah, you know what else, dude? And you might love these movies. Those Creep movies. You know what I'm talking about?
Creep? Yeah, Creep 1 and 2.
Yeah, hate those movies, dude. Hate them.
I've seen the first one, and it was good, decent, but nothing ever went back revisited.
But, man, people love that stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't see it, man. I don't see it at all. So, just another example of sometimes, and I think it has a lot to do with my age. We talked about that before. I'm an old school, and I know you are too, but I'm an old school slasher, straight up slasher kind of guy. So I think that new stuff, when they throw all that stuff in, is kind of off-putting to me. Not that I think anyone else should hate it, but I think that's why. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. It's almost a lot of ways. It's like it's not made for us anymore. Like
right.
a lot of these aren't, and I'm fine with that. Like I don't even say a word. I don't get the love for Hatchet either. Good to be on the same page with you. Hatchet is my shit. For one opinion, you get the other. This is why I like the chat. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to give it a decent 1 for the actress and Elm Street actor. They're good. Okay, we got Aiden. Candyman 3's on the board with Aiden.
Change my mind.
Creep 1 and 2 are so wonderful, but I adore Mark Duplass as the killer. Okay, cool. I gotta honestly rewatch Creep 1 and give Creep 2 a chance. We all have different taste, and that's the beauty of this. That's why I like doing this show. It's fun. I have never forgotten Tubby Time and Peach Fuzz. Okay. Too long since I watched them all for a rating. Let's say 8.65. Okay. Those are fair. I definitely think those are fair ratings. And that's not, I mean, that's pretty high for the original. No, I think that's a pretty good score. Never seen the Creep movies. Okay. Well, speaking of movies you haven't seen, Don has not watched this reboot all the way. This is the final film of the series. This is just from 1 year ago. This is the Candyman reboot / requel, Candyman 2021. A sequel to the horror film Candyman that returns to the now gentrified Chicago neighborhood where the legend began. Yes, Candyman 2021. Now, I know this film was supposed to come out 2020. The pandemic hit, delayed it for a year. Jordan Peele helped produce and write this movie, although he did not direct. It was Nia DaCosta that took the director's chair. Now, I know we went back to the 90s 3 separate times tonight. Take us back to just a whole year ago. Did you see the trailer to this? Because I know you haven't watched this for the show, so this is going to be more my spotlight here.
Yeah.
But do tell me, what did you think? Initial thoughts when you saw the trailer?
Well, knowing my thoughts on the movie itself, I was disappointed. Kind of like when The Thing 2011 came out. You're like, some things you don't touch. Which reminds me that I heard they're remaking Jaws.
They can't. Is Rob Zombie going to do it? Sherry Moon's going to be the fucking shark?
Probably. Probably. So I was disappointed. So I knew right then and there I would not see this movie at the theaters just because I knew I was going to be disappointed. And I don't know. This movie there's such a wide variety of opinions about it. And that's, they like you said, they kind of hammer you over the head with the social stuff, and it's just not my thing. You know what I mean? I'd just rather not. I don't want to go in. I don't want to go watch a horror movie and be pissed off. I watch it for fun, just like you do, and it doesn't always end up being fun, but you know what I'm saying. That's my intent. So knowing ahead of time that was going to happen, that's why I've tried to avoid it. Yeah,
but did the trailer at all? Anything in the trailer entice you, or did you just see the trailer and went, no?
I don't remember, John. It's funny you asked me that because I'm trying to think about it. I don't remember the trailer. I really don't remember. I obviously watched it, but I can't. Again, maybe that's another reason I didn't go see it is because I didn't remember much.
Well, you're not alone. This movie came out a year ago. Aiden already forgot it existed. It's a whole year old, and he remembered Candyman 3 existed, so I don't know. Is that score going to be a 2 now? The Candyman 3 keeps looking better and better. Don, you got to watch. AJ says you should watch. AJ just likes to see people get mad. I think that's...
Is that what it is?
He told me today, he goes, oh, we got to watch the new Halloween. I'm like, buddy, this is going to make me mad. He goes, oh, well, that's why I want you to see it. I said, I'm in no rush. He goes, I'm in a rush to see you rant about it. I'm like,
that's exactly right.
I'm like, oh, geez. Way too much hype, too much obvious social commentary, and very little scares. Tom, we're on the same page. This is a first-time name, Desha Tracy. Welcome. Exactly. I want to watch a horror movie for the horror, not just BS like the TCM remake. Ben Grimm liked the reboot. Okay, so we've got Tom doesn't like it. Ben does like it. Oh, man. Whew, that one I don't agree with at all. But to each their own. That's fine. Before I shit on Candyman 2021, do you want to give brief thoughts on DCM 2022?
Oh my God.
This face says it all.
I mean, this was I haven't seen Candyman 2022, but there was a lot of social commentary in that. And you know what? The kills were okay, but the buildup that they tried to do with Sally, and she was in it for like 2 seconds, and I'm like, what were you thinking? I think I'm not a big fan of the new stuff of Halloween, right? I think we both agree on that.
Sure.
But I get it. You know what I mean? I understand why people would be interested in it. And that's what made them successful, right? So TCM said, watch us fuck these people over. You know what I mean? So it was there were some great kills in it. And but other than that, dude, I did not enjoy that at all. And it was only like what 100 or I mean an hour and 15 minutes or something
It
like
was
that.
74 minutes.
Yeah, dang. Yeah, so that was another thing, but I would have wanted to stop making that too if I was them.
Yeah.
Well,
The original directors got their asses fired, so that was the end of that, man. I would have
that was brutal. That was tough to watch at times.
Gave Brutal a different name. I might give Candyman 3's got a 2 now. Okay, see what this does, man. But by the time we end the show, Candyman 3 will be like a 7 for 80. TCM 2022 is garbage fire. I agree. Pat is in the house. Pat, we just did a show together. Pat, welcome to my graveyard, my friend. Just give me a great gore and I'm happy. Okay, you're gore hound, you're kill count guy. That makes sense. TCM 2022 had its good elements, but no family and not even fulfilling the main character's character arc or developing it, plus many other things ruined it for me. I would say it's a dumpster fire. Candyman remake was forgetful. Sadly, to me, the remake was horrible. I would agree, and let me get into my thoughts because I know I kind of want to shoot on this movie. So
hold on. Let me set my timer at how long this rant goes.
I'm not going to try to chew scenery here like the cop from Candyman 2, but I make no promises. I will say that this is the most frustrating movie we're going to talk about tonight because this movie had potential. It really, truly did. It had some nice visual shots. The director, Nia DaCosta, does a good job. She does some interesting flashback sequences with like shadow puppets. Interesting, creative visual. I liked. They open up the movie where everything's backwards like a mirror. They play the Sammy Davis Candyman song. Candyman. I was like, wow. When I've seen it, I'm like, okay, this is starting promising. I like the music. They go to, instead of a piano score, it's more of a synth score. I was like, fuck, I'm all in. I'm so excited right now. And then the rest of this piece of shit movie plays out. Holy shit. You have this lead actor who fucking is the most annoying antagonist ever, played by Yahya Abdul Mateen II. Yahya, I'm sorry, man, but this character sucked. And he's basically this artist, and he's living with his girlfriend, and they have all of these issues with Cabrini Green. Oh, white people built the ghetto, but then they fucking took it down because they realized they built the ghetto. And you have some of the most stereotypical characters to the point where I would feel insulted if I was a fucking homosexual. You have these the gay couple, and like, it reminded me of the fucking David Alan Grier skit on In Living Color. I was waiting for one of them to say, "Oh no, you didn't!" Like, what the fuck? I mean, they're just sitting there like, "Oh, like what the fuck? Like, how stereotypical are you going to be?"
Right.
Horrible. The sequences of horror in this movie, and there's not a lot of them, are horrible. Horrible. There's these piece of shit couple that, oh, we're gonna fuck in the art museum and say his name, and they get killed horribly. The Candyman is invisible for most of this movie. You don't really see a Candyman, briefly here and there. This piece of shit film introduces the idea of multiple Candymen. So if you're a person of color and you are killed unjustly, you become a Candyman. That's how this is done. It's not the Daniel Robitaille Candyman. It's any person of color, but they don't really go into depth. Can there be Chinese Candyman? Can there be Hispanic Candyman? Right. The Dulce Man? I don't fucking know. Can there be white Candyman? I don't know. I have no idea. Nobody fucking says it. But apparently, if you're killed in Justice League, you become a fucking Candyman. Okay, whatever. That fucking completely defeats the purpose of the original film, but whatever. Right. And throughout the film, it's different fucking Candyman. There's a Candyman here from the 70s. We don't see the Tony Todd Candyman until the very end. This fucking idiot artist gets bit by a bee, starts body changing, like some body horror is thrown in here, and he's turning into a fucking Candyman. I don't know. It's almost like trying to be like a Nightmare on Elm Street 2 in a lot of ways. Yeah. Like Freddy is becoming Jesse. And in this film, it's kind of similar. Like, he's becoming the Candyman. He keeps seeing the Candyman, whatever the fuck. The ending of this movie is just horrible. But before that, there's no horror sequences really in this movie. Like, it's so trying to beat you over the head with what it's trying to say. And, This is, a political statement that was sold and marketed with the Candyman name. And it just beats you over the head with its message. It's like, we're going to sell this as horror, but when you get here, we're just going to preach politics to you. And it's like, whether you agree or disagree, we came to the theater to see a horror film. We want to be entertained. That's what the original movie does. We talked all about how that original movie, the kid talking about the story in the bathroom and the folk tale and the music and the good acting and the presence of Tony Todd. There's nothing like that in this movie. There's no such thing as a fucking presence in this movie. It's just agenda, fuck you. That's basically what this movie is. And then at one point they were like, fuck, we got to throw a sequence of horror in here. There's 5 bully white girls in the bathroom, and they were bullying an African-American girl, and they say, oh, we're going to say Candyman in the mirror. The Asian one runs out because we can't kill her because she's not white. They fucking stand in the mirror and they say Candyman. They all get killed off screen. And I about fucking pulled my hair out when I first saw it. I'm like, they all got killed off screen? Fuck. Yeah. And then the finale, which takes the fucking cake. This guy is fully turned into a Candyman. He's laying on the ground. The police come in, bust in, and shoot him while he's on the ground. And then, oh, come in the car to the girlfriend. Oh, he charged us, right? They're going on the tab that, oh, police twist everything and that he charged, blah, 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 blah. She says Candyman 5 times. The Candyman comes, kills all the cops, kills the entire fucking police force. And then for some fucking reason, the Candyman turns around and it's digitally de-aged CGI Tony Todd. And he says, tell everyone. And this fucking piece of dog shit, honey fucking garbage ends. And I about wanted to pull my fucking hair out. Wow. What the fuck? I mean, I hate this movie with a burning passion. Like, I just can't, man. I can't. Like, what do you think about this whole agenda over horror thing and selling it with the Candyman name and then to do this? To me, it's just a disgrace.
Yeah. Well, I have to be honest with you, John. It's everywhere, man. You know what I'm saying? It's literally like, it reminds me, it sounds like a Netflix original or something like that. You know what I mean? And that's real. I have to avoid those things because, like I said, I don't want to align my passion of horror movies with anger, or frustration. You know what I mean? So that's why, that's why I try to avoid things like that. And I hate saying that because, there are some things, worth complaining about. I agree. I do believe that, but for me, that's probably why I will never watch it. Just because
I don't blame you.
I can't do that. You know what I mean? And it's, I don't know. It's like finding out your best friend murdered somebody. You know what I mean? It's trying to kind of changes things,
Yeah. Like, I love you, but you did something wrong,
Right. Exactly. So that's why I like to stick to my 80s stuff and my early 90s stuff.
I think you're a smart man, Don. And I think I'm an idiot, but I got to say that this movie frustrated me the most because you really had someone who was talented. This director, she did a wonderful job. The movie is slick looking. I really do. I think it's well done, but she wasn't making a horror film. She was making a political statement and sold it with the Candyman name. This movie made a ton of money, and my question is to the people that went to go support this in the theater, were you really going to the theater to see a political statement or were you going to see a horror movie? That is my question. Whether you liked or disliked this movie, that's where it's missing. It's missing the horror elements that sell this movie as a horror film. And to me, that's really where the biggest disconnect is. That sometimes happens, I think, especially with Mr. Peele. I think he loves the genre, but I think a lot of times he's more, let me make my message loud and clear instead of subtly putting it around my product like the original does. And that's really where they lose me. Now we'll get to comments. The Graveyard is mighty. Hell yeah, we're always mighty. Didn't have a problem with the direction in the film, the synth score, but the story, story is awful. It's basically body horror Candyman and multiple Candymen for some fucking reason. And there's an evil laundromat fucking person in it. I shit you not. That's what I'm saying. And some false advertising, to be honest, because people were telling me, oh, Tony Todd's the Candyman. And that was the biggest fucking reason I watched. I was like, Tony Todd. I mean, if I hate everything else, at least I'll be able to put over Tony Todd. It's fucking CGI, digitally de-aged Tony Todd for 5 seconds at the end. and I fucking screamed when it ended. I was like, fuck. Like, you gotta be kidding. Candyman 2020 is a crappy version of Midnight Meat Train, which was a fantastic film. I would watch Midnight Meat Train 100 times. Yeah, no, like, she did have some interesting things here, man. I really wonder if it was more her call to make this more political. Was it Jordan Peele's call? I know they both wrote it together. So I don't know who's really to blame for the more political as opposed to more horror. But that, to me, that's where it ended. But I guess there'll probably be people to make the argument, don't you find that real life stuff horrific? And yes, I understand that argument. But to me, when you're going to a cinema to see a horror movie, there's only so much of that you should have in your film. It shouldn't be your entire thing. That's my argument to that. Multiple Candyman, I just hate the idea. I do too. I think it was just horrible, and they don't really explain it. Like, to me, you're really making it unimportant as to what the Daniel Robitaille Candyman was, the Tony Todd Candyman. That was his story. He was the Candyman. Like, there's not multiple Michael Myers, multiple Freddys. You know, it was him. He was the child murderer. He got the dream powers for whatever fucking reason. That's it. It makes him special. To me, doing multiple Candyman, it really hurts the original films. I didn't like it.
Well, there was Ben Tramer.
There was Roy Burns for Jason.
That's right.
The remake was all over the place. It did not make sense. And the Candyman, LOL, I hate it. It is. It's fucking Candyman. And I sincerely ask that question because it's not just African Americans that are killed for racial prejudice or hate. I'm asking sincerely, is there a fucking Hispanic Candyman out there? I want to see that movie next. Let's see that movie next. Fuck. Because if there's multiple Candyman, now there's going to be fucking Candyman of every race. A white chocolate Candyman. I guess a caramel man. I don't know. I wish they would have left this alone, honestly. Me too. It's just like, where do you just call it a day? And I guess, because of the social issues that were going on, this is probably why this got the green light. We were talking about this before the show even went live. That's probably why this got the green light. Of course, we wanted Tony Todd, and instead we got 3 different guys. None of them were menacing or had a presence. And at the end, we got Tony Todd to prove, he was in the movie. Like, that's bullshit, false advertising. We got CGI Tony Todd, CGI young Tony Todd. That's what we fucking got. And the fact that they held this garbage back a damn year because of the pandemic, they did. That's right. And it made a shit ton of money. It made like over $70 million. To remember an average movie, I have to watch it like 7 times. I got to stop smoking. Oh, shit. The director learned some tips from David Gordon Green's in terms of off-screen kills. Dude, almost every kill in this movie is off-screen, and it's infuriating. And the Candyman floats. The Candyman doesn't even walk in this movie. He floats. Because we all float down in this motherfucker. The new Candyman were off screen because he killed them with cavities. Yeah, right. He should have I would rather fucking have a cavity taken care of. That shit doesn't belong in horror movies, especially reboot. Exactly, like, because very rarely do I go to the movies and see a bunch of kids going, "Oh my God, political context. I can't wait to see how it's tackled." There ain't no fucking person doing that. And if you are, why are you at the cinema going to a horror movie? Go to a fucking political rally or something. That's right. Who you want to be. We go to a horror movie, we got some popcorn, some soda. We're talking about the work day. We're talking about fucking women. We're talking about whatever the fuck we want to talk about. Not that. It's just not the place for it to me. It can be, hinted, but oh my God. Horror has always had social commentary, but it used to be more subtle. Exactly. And now they're really not. Over the top SC movies I have fun with, but if you're doing Candyman, keep it subtle. I agree, because it's already there. That's what I told my brother. This isn't a horror movie, nor does this have anything to do with Candyman. I completely agree. It's just how can we make our voices heard and sell it? And that's basically what they did. And they did their job. 70 million plus. Candyman without Tony Todd is an insult. I agree. I don't think they should have touched it unless he was the main guy. I'll give it a fair shot someday, but I ain't going to go out of my way to see it. Don't blame you. Romero Romero did it subtly. But man, I would say this is one of the worst requel movies out there. One of the worst of the year 2021. I would come in with a rightful score of I'll say a 3 out of 10. I think it has some interesting direction things, but man, it's a piece of shit to me.
Okay. Really like so Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Candyman?
This is a better made movie. I would say this. At least she had some interesting ideas visually, but she really, I really think the script crippled this movie. I wonder if it was more her, then I blame her. But if it was more Jordan Peele, because they wrote it together,
right?
It feels more Jordan Peele than me. But maybe I wasn't there. I don't know who wrote more of it.
Well, we have some history to go by too, so that's why it seems like it might be more. Yeah, I understand.
Yes, and it's Blumhouse produced.
Right.
And that's why the sequences of horror feel very added in. That bathroom sequence feels like somebody said in post, fuck, there's not much horror in our horror movie. We got to go fucking reshoot something. And, I know, we'll put bully white girls in a fucking bathroom and kill them off screen.
Right.
And that's what they fucking did. I'm just sitting here like, fuck. Like, I don't know, man. Labyrinth UFC breakdowns in the house. Up, guys. My favorite Candyman was Candyman 2. Farewell to the Flesh, set in New Orleans. Wow. Okay, that's a first.
Hey, John. I told you, man, some people love that New Orleans stuff. I like that atmosphere. Angel Heart, Cat People, what was the other one I was thinking? I can't remember, but I don't know what it is, man. I like that, that place. I think I've never been there, but it seems like an interesting mixture of people and partying and voodoo and witchcraft, So people love that stuff, man, and I'm with you, man. I like the New Orleans aspect.
Hell yeah, and we talked about it a while back. So if you want to rewind it, you totally can. Looks like you just showed up to the show. We did a full in depth on every Candyman movie, and we're just wrapping up the requel, reboot, whatever here. 3 out of 10 for the new film, slightly better than Candyman 3. I love the direction and synth score quite a bit, but the story blah. Yeah, it for all the things it does right, which is very few, it does a lot wrong. I actually didn't think any of the actors were good in this movie either. I think that really hurt it. Where, the first movie, you have all that great, fantastic acting and presence. You really don't have that here. And and by the way, I meant to tell you, your whole idea with the baby, the lead character in this is the baby grown up.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that's one of the big twists in this movie. And Vanessa Williams is actually in it for a brief scene.
Okay.
She was probably the best actor in the whole movie. So, go figure. But yeah, that is the Candyman retrospective. If we were to rank these films, I guess we'd go right in order, right? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, I have, yeah. Yeah. If I could put 4 lower, it sounds like I'm like, can I make it 5th out of 4?
Well, you'd have to put something in between. Maybe we'll put the cop from Chewing Up Scenery in 2.
You know what? There's something we didn't talk about that I forgot.
Sure.
They were going to do a Candyman versus Leprechaun.
Oh, do tell. Go ahead, because I killed enough screen time on this with my rant.
So part 3, Tony Todd produced, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure that's part of the reason that that he did it. But they came to him later on because Freddy versus Jason with the idea of doing Candyman versus Leprechaun. And he said, hell no, I'm not doing
Good job. Good thing.
Tell me that wouldn't be the biggest pile of garbage. I like Leprechaun for what it is, but when you put those 2 movies together, that is a sin. That you should go straight to HE double hockey sticks for that.
For real.
Would you like to see Candyman versus Leprechaun?
Leprechaun and Chucky would have made sense.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Voodoo and the magic, it would have worked. But fucking Candyman, no. Like, I've heard people say, and I don't know how you feel about this, if you did Barker versus Barker, if you did Pinhead versus Candyman, that I could see.
Yeah, there you go. That would work. But because of who owned the rights at the time, they thought that was a good idea. And I was like, somebody was definitely smoking.
Yeah.
That would not have worked at all.
Yeah, no, Big Kev, I don't know if Big Kev's still in the house. They're probably smoking the good stuff with him, and it takes him 7 times to watch a movie. Oh, he's right here. He's right. Oh, cute. Candyman versus Lep. I don't even know how that would have worked, but I would have been down for it. Hey, man, I'll tell you what. I would take that over this new Candyman. And so if you want to write the script, I'm all for it. That sounds amazing. I want to see that new sounds like a beautiful train wreck. Okay, Trench is on board. Leprechaun versus Candyman would be great wrestling match. Would it? I think Candyman match would be quite the wrestling match. Royal Rumble, that would be something.
Right.
I love the new Hellraiser more than the new Candyman, but that's just my easily. I don't even think that's close. I would say the new Hellraiser was miles better than the Candyman. Candyman was Candyman versus Hellraiser. I'm sorry, Candyman versus Leprechaun could be better than Alien versus Predators. Oh, do you think so? I don't know. What do you think?
No way, man. You had aliens and predators, bro.
And Lance Henriksen.
Yeah,
I
like those films, man.
The first one's fine. The second one's like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I would do the Djinn from Wishmaster versus Candyman. Okay, that was around this era. Leprechaun should fight the Djinn from Wishmaster. Okay, we got two people on board for that. Right, Pinhead versus Michael doesn't make much sense. That wouldn't. I don't know. I know that for the longest time they wanted Freddy versus Jason to end with Pinhead and being like, gentlemen, what seems to be the issue? Or then they wanted Ash to be in it, Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, which would have been fun. I don't know. Would Michael work in any of those versus movies? I don't really know if it would work.
I don't know, man. I know everybody loved the idea of Freddy versus Jason, but I don't know. It never really worked for me. I thought that movie is pretty rancid. I think, I just think it could have been done better, but I don't know. A lot of people really love that, but I don't know. Never really got into it, to be honest with you.
Would there be, let me ask you this, would there be a horror versus battle that you'd want to see that maybe we haven't? Or are you not into the whole versus thing?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. If it was done right, the Alien versus Predator could have been something huge, because I think that one makes a lot more sense, more because it's action not because it's horror, but because it's action. I think that could have worked out. But other than that, nah, man, I mean, for fun, you know what I mean? If it was parody like or something, then maybe that would work. But I don't know, man. I've never even really thought about it. Jaws versus Alien. I don't know.
Jaws versus Grizzly.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. I don't know how that would work. How does one get in the water or the Jaws get out?
That's for the writers to decide. I can create it. I get paid. You can figure it out. Your problem. Myers versus Chrome Skull from Laid to Rest. I love Laid to Rest. That's a fun slasher movie. Who knows? Maybe one day. Maybe I did a couple months ago a versus episode where I did, Frankenstein meets a Wolfman, King Kong versus Godzilla, Freddy versus Jason, and Sadako versus Kayako. And that was a fun little episode, little versus episode of anyone who's interested in this whole versus chat. The key to the versus movies is to get together characters from universes that make sense and are similar in tone. Leprechaun versus Candyman is a total clash in tone. Exactly. That's why I think Leprechaun and Chucky would have worked. Same height, same idea, dealing with the magic voodoo angle, and they're both spouting one-liners. I think that would have worked as a versus movie. And that would have been funny as hell to see Warwick Davis fucking clash verbally with fucking Brad Dourif.
Yeah, there you go.
That would have been funny. Don't fuck with the Chuck and give me back me gold, bitch. Like that would have been something fun. But this has been a great time tonight, man. I wanted to thank you for coming on. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we hit the road here?
No. Just looking forward to the rest of the Halloween season and looking forward to Christmas, so I can watch Black Christmas for like 10 days in a row.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. They're showing 35 millimeter by me in November. Black Christmas, the original. So
you get all the good stuff, dude. You get all the good shit.
Blood Rage as well. Blood Rage followed by Black Christmas, double feature holiday.
Blood Rage. Jeez.
Thanksgiving followed by Black Christmas. I'm kind of excited. But is there anything else you want to be watching around this Halloween spooky season that you have planned, or just gonna play it by the old ear?
Well, I am gonna watch. I'm gonna watch the Halloween Ends shit, but I'm not happy about it. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it, and I'll definitely let you know what my opinion on that already piece of shit is. But other than that, I mean, just the same old stuff, bro. I'm waiting for the cold so I can watch The Thing. I'm waiting for Black Christmas. I'm getting ready to show my family Trick or Treat.
Oh, hell yeah.
They've never seen it. So, I'm looking forward to that stuff. And, this is always a great time of year. So, man, just basking in the glory.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And that's so cool that movie finally got its theatrical. They put it in the theater for a night. So I thought that was really cool to see all these years later, because it should have been there to begin with. They just teach the bear from Grizzly how to surf. See, Trench, I think this is perfect. By the way, shameless plug for next week's show. Trench, as long as he can come on, we're going to be doing Pet Sematary 1 and 2 all things Clancy Brown and, of course, Fred Gwynn. Super excited to have you on. Finally, first-time guest. As long as that day works out for you, we'll be in touch email-wise. If anything, changes, let me know. Dead Central, I agree. Lep versus Chucky would be fun, but such an unfair fight for Chuck. Leprechaun's magic is OP. But what about the voodoo, bro? What about the
right?
A day to eat Zembella. Did you guys watch Deadstream yet?
I did.
What'd you think?
I thought it was pretty good. John, it's funny. What do you know about me? I don't like a lot of comedy in my horror, but Deadstream was great, dude.
Where'd you watch it?
It's on Shudder.
Okay. And what to watch?
Yeah, man. I sat my son. My son is 18, and I sat him down. I said, I think you'll like this. Just trying to get him to watch some horror with me, and we watched it, and I really dug it. I thought it was pretty damn good.
All right, you know what? If Tom liked it, you liked it, I'm going to have to go in head first and see it too. So Deadstream, and I know the new Argento film is now on Shudder as well. So Dark Glasses or Black Glasses.
It is?
It just debuted on there today.
Oh, shit. Great. I can work tomorrow, dude. I got to work.
Well, I'm not off tomorrow. I got to go to work in the AM, so we're going to have to save these things.
John, did you see Smile?
I did. What'd you think?
I didn't see it. You're supposed to tell me. You were supposed to text me, bro.
I thought I did. Okay. It was very much like a Hollywood It Follows. Like it was very much like a curse movie following that formula, maybe a movie like The Ring. I liked it. I had fun with it. I saw it in a theater filled with fucking screaming teenagers. So it was a fun movie theater experience. Cool. Maybe not the greatest movie in the world, but I had fun with it. Kumar from fucking Harold Kumar's in it.
Yeah.
Loved. I mean, I thought it was a fun time at the movies. I would recommend that one for sure.
Cool.
Awesome. Cool. Oh yeah. Pet Cemetery. Can't wait. Hell yeah. That's next week. As long as Trendy can make it. Zim captured the bug. What the heck? What are you talking about, Pat? Yeah, I should be available. There we go. We're set. Evil Dead 2 meets Host. It was a blast. Is that how you describe Deadstream, Don?
Oh, Host?
Host is the one where it's like the webcam, fucking haunted webcam.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess, that'll work. It was just a streamer who goes into a haunted house and has to spend the night and shit goes wrong. But the comedy is, there's comedy throughout, but it's mostly at the beginning, and then at the end, it's a little bit more serious. So, I mean, to give you an idea, because I don't usually like a lot of horror.
I know if you liked it, it's got to be something serious going on. So.
Evil Dead 2, definitely, I can see that. I can see where he's coming from.
I thought Deadstream was a fun ride. Went by fast, had some interesting effects. Okay, this is coming to my watch list next. Someone oversold Deadstream to me. I didn't like it. Okay, Bobby Wire. Aiden, definitely Evil Dead vibe to it. That's going to be a great one, Trench. Yeah, we're looking forward to that. All things Pet Cemetery. Don, I want to thank you once again for being a wonderful guest and friend to me throughout the years. This was a great time catching up. It's funny. We went 10 months without doing a show, and it's like we hadn't missed a day.
No, we could do this every week, bro.
Dude, you're the man. Thank you so much. Everyone in the chat, thank you so much for checking out the show tonight. We had a lively discussion. Long live the Candyman. Celebrate the anniversary this Sunday. Watch the original. And we will catch you next time only on the Graveyard for Pet Cemetery. Ooh, yeah. Good night, everybody. Too sweet. Peace. And we'll catch you next time.